For the technical knowledge, to measure the lease liability in case of an extension option. To measure the lease liability when a lease contains variable payment. To identify a lease modification that is accounted for separately. To know the recognition of a lease modification relating to extension of lease term, decrease in scope, and change in rental payment.
Good day everyone, so we welcome you to Chapter 11 of Intermediate Accounting 2, wherein we will focus on the variable lease payments and lease modification. So I am Nicole A. Labrador, the reporter of the first part of the Chapter 11, and I am also with Risha Hoya, who will be discussing the second part of the Chapter 11. So let us now proceed with the discussion. Variable payments. So according to the previous chapter, variable payment is one of the components of the lease payments, and it is defined as the payments that varies because of the changes that occur after the commencement date. So for us to understand it, let us go to our illustrative example. On January 1, 2021, an entity entered into an 8-year lease of a floor building with the following terms. Annual rental for the first 3 years payable at the end of each year is 300,000 and annual rental for the next 5 years payable at the end of each year is 400,000. So as we can see, 8-year yung lease term natin. For the first 3 years, the annual rental is 300,000. Then for the next 5 years, the annual rental is already 400,000. So, variable na yung payment. Then, implicit interest rate, 10%. Present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 at 10% for the 3 periods is 2.487. Then, present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 at 10% for the 5 periods is 3.791. Then, the last one is present value of 1 at 10% for 3 periods is 0.751. So let us go now to the computation of initial measurement of lease liability. So annual rental for first 3 years is 300,000. Then we will multiply it by present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 at 10% for 3 periods, which is 2.487. So the present value of as of January 1, 2021 is 746,100. Then next is the annual rental for next 5 years, which is 400,000. Then imumultiply ulit natin siya sa present value ng ordinary annuity, pero hindi na natin siya imumultiply doon sa 3 periods na ginamit natin kanina. This time, imumultiply natin siya sa present value ng ordinary annuity of 1 at 10% for 5 periods, which is the 3.791. So the present value as of January 1, 2024 is 1,516,400. So, hindi pa din nag-e-end yung computation natin. Since 2024 yon, kailangan natin bumalik sa 2021. Imumultiply natin siya sa present value of 1 at 10% for 3 periods, which is 0.751. So, the present value na nakuha natin as of January 1, 2021 is 1,138,816. So, adding the two products of the annual rental for first 3 years and for next 5 years with their respective present value of an ordinary annuity, will give us the answer or will give us the initial measurement of this liability as of January 1, 2021, amounting to 1,884,916. We also prepare an amortization table. So we have 5 columns here: date, the payment, interest, principal, and then the present value. So, ang given natin dito, of course, ay yung date, then yung variable payments, and then yung ating lease liability at the beginning. So, for us to compute the interest rate, so we have to multiply the present value or the lease liability sa ating implicit rate. So, ang example dito ay yung 1,884,916 multiplied by 10% will result to 188,492. So, that is the interest. So, for us to get the principal naman, we have to deduct the interest sa ating payment. So, ang ating interest na nakuha kanina ay 188,492. Ililess natin siya sa 300,000. So, ang result or yung answer will be 111,508. And that answer will be deducted naman sa 1,884,916 or yung beginning ng ating lease, yung lease liability natin at the beginning para makuha natin yung new amount of our lease liability. Journal entries for 2021. So the first entry, we debit right of use asset or ROUA amounting to 1,884,916 and we credit lease liability amounting to 1,884,916. So the second entry, so we record the first annual payment on December 31, 2021. We debit interest expense amounting to 188,492 and we also debit lease liability amounting to 111,508 and then we credit cash amounting to 300,000. So the last entry, we record the annual depreciation. So debit depreciation 235,615 and we credit accumulated depreciation amounting to 235,615. So, it should be noted that the depreciation is based on the lease term of 8 years because there is neither a transfer of title nor purchase option. Lease modification. So, when we say lease modification, there's a remeasurement of lease liability. So, ano nga ba yung reasons kung bakit nagkakaroon tayo ng remeasurement? So, pwedeng ang reason natin dito is nagkaroon ng changes or pagbabago ang implicit rate or lease term. So, here is the illustrative example. On January 1, 2021, an entity entered into a lease of building with the following information. Annual rental payable at the end of each year is 500,000. Lease term is 5 years. Useful life of building is 20 years. Implicit interest rate 10%. And present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 at 10% for 5 periods is actually 3.791. So the lease contained an option for the lessee to extend for a further 5 years. So ibig sabihin lang dito, may option si lessee na i-extend yung lease term for further 5 years. But at the commencement date, the exercise of the extension option is not reasonably certain. Again, we prepare an amortization table. So, yung procedure nito is katulad lang ng mga binanggit ko kanina. In getting interest, we multiply the present value or the lease liability in the implicit rate, and in getting principal naman, we deduct the interest sa payment. Then, in getting new lease liability, we deduct the principal in the present value. For journal entries for 2021, so as of January 1, we Debit right of use asset or the UWA amounting to 1,895,500. Then we credit lease liability amounting to 1,895,500. Then on December 31, we debit interest expense 189,550. We debit as well the lease liability amounting to 310,450. Then we credit cash amounting to 500,000. So on December 31 then, we record the depreciation. So debit depreciation 379,100. Then we credit accumulated depreciation amounting to 379,100. So here is the continuation of our illustrative problem. So after 3 years on January 1, 2024, the lessee decided to extend the lease for a further 5 years. New annual rental payable at the end of each year is 600,000. The new implicit interest rate 8%. Present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 at 8% for 5 periods is actually 3.993. Then present value of 1 at 8% for 2 periods is 0.857. Then the last given is the present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 at 8% for 2 periods, which is actually 1.783. So, nag-decide na si Leslie dito na i-extend yung lease term. So, ang ibig sabihin doon, magkakaroon tayo ng remeasurement of lease liability. We will now compute the remeasurement of lease liability. On January 1, 2024, so the lease liability is remeasured using the new implicit interest rate, which is the 8%. Annual rental for remaining 2 years of all this term is 500,000. We will multiply it by present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 at 8% for 2 periods, which is 1.783. So the present value as of January 1, 2024 is 891,500. Annual rental for 5 years starting January 1, 2026 is 600,000. So ito na yung new amount. So we will multiply it by present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 at 8% for 5 periods, which is 3.993. So the present value as of January 1, 2026 is 2,395,800. So sabi ko nga kanina, hindi tayo doon mag-end yung computation natin. So since kailangan natin bumalik ng January 1, 2024, i-multiply natin yung present value natin kanina sa present value of 1 at 8% for 2 periods, which is 0.857. So the present value as of January 1, 2024 is 2,053,200. Present value of remaining rentals of all these term amounting to 891,500 ay i-add natin sa present value of new rentals of extended lease term amounting to 2,053,200. So we will get the total present value as of January 1, 2024 amounting to 2,944,700. Then i-deduct natin doon yung present value as of December 31, 2023 amounting to 867,910. So, yung increase in lease liability on January 1, 2024 is equal to 2,076,790. So, for us to get the carrying amount as of January 1, 2024, we will deduct the accumulated depreciation amounting to 1,137,300 sa right of use asset or the UWA amounting to 1,895,500. So, yung carrying amount as of December 31, 2023 is 758,200. Then, we will add the increase in liability na nakuha natin on January 1, 2024, amounting to 2,076,790. So, we will get the carrying amount as of January 1, 2024, amounting to 2,834,990. So, according to IFR 16, paragraph 44, the lessee shall account for the lease modification as a separate lease under the following conditions. So, if ever these two conditions are met, the lessee shall account this lease separately. So, first condition, the modification increases the scope of the lease by adding the right to use an additional underlying asset. Then, the second one is the rental for the lease modification increases by an amount commensurate with the increase in scope and equivalent to the current market rental. So, here is the illustration. On January 1, 2021, an entity entered into a lease agreement with the following information. Floor space, 300 square meters. Annual rental payable at the end of each year is 100,000. Implicit rate in the lease is actually 10%. Lease term is 8 years. Then the present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 at 10% for 8 periods is actually 5.34. We prepare also a journal entries for 2021. So on January 1, we debit right of use asset amounting to 534,000. Then we credit lease liability amounting to 534,000. So Nicole, paano ba nakuha yung 534,000? We simply multiply our annual rental payable at the end of each year, which is the 100,000, kay present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 at 10% for 8 periods, which is the 5.34. On December 31 naman, we debit interest expense amounting to 53,400. We debit as well the lease liability amounting to 46,600. Then we credit cash amounting to 100,000. Yung interest expense, nakuha natin siya by simply multiplying our lease liability kay implicit rate in the lease, which is the 10%. Then yung lease liability naman, iyon yung principal natin. On December 31, in recording depreciation, we debit depreciation amounting to 66,750. Then we credit accumulated depreciation amounting to 66,750. Here is the continuation of our illustrative problem. On January 1, 2023, the entity and the lessor agreed to amend the original terms of the lease with the following information. Additional floor space, 450 square meters. Increase in rental payable at the end of each year is 200,000. Implicit rate in the lease is 8%. And the present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 at 8% for 6 periods is 4.62. So dito, nagkaroon na ng increase kay rental. And if that's the case, the entity shall treat it separately or account it separately. Here is the journal entries for 2023. So, on January 1, we debit right-of-use asset amounting to 924,000. Then, we credit lease liability amounting to 924,000. So, saan ang galing yung 924,000? It is the product of our rental payable at the end of each year, which is the 200,000, and the present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 at 8% for 6 periods, which is the 4.62. On December 31, we debit interest expense amounting to 73,920. Then we debit as well the lease liability amounting to 126,080. Then we credit cash amounting to 200,000. So, saan galing yung amount ng ating interest expense? So, it is the product of our present value as of January 1, 2023 or yung lease liability natin ng January 1, 924,000 and our implicit rate in the lease which is the 8%. Then yung ating lease liability dito or yung debited lease liability natin dito is yung residual ng ating cash and then interest expense. On December 31 naman, we record the annual depreciation. So we debit depreciation amounting to 154,000 and then we credit accumulated depreciation amounting to 154,000. So that's all for the part 1. Thank you for listening and proceed now to the second part of this chapter 11.
Good day, good morning, good evening kung anong oras ka man nanonood. Ngayon ay nasa part 2 na tayo ng ating chapter 11 sa Intermediate Accounting 2. Lease modification pa rin tayo. However, we will focus on the extension of term, decrease in scope, and change in rental. I am Rachel Ohoya and I will be your reporter. Ayan, so nasa lease modification, extension of lease term na tayo. Again, paano natin masasabi na nagkaroon ng modification? So, modification, di ba, these are the changes. Ibig sabihin, hindi magkakaroon ng changes kung wala tayong starting point or yung original agreement between the lessee and the lessor. So, ang lease modification, again, these are the subsequent measurement ng original agreement natin. So, let's try to apply it on an illustration para mas maintindihan natin. On January 1, 2021, an entity entered into a lease for office space with the following information. Annual rental payable at the end of each year beginning December 31, 2021, 200,000 pesos. Lease term 5 years. Implicit rate in the lease 9%. Present value of the ordinary annuity of 1 for 5 periods at 9%, we have 3.89. So again, hindi tayo magkakaroon ng modification kung walang pagbabago na nangyari. So here on the right side of our screen, indicated yung amendments na ginawa doon sa agreement, original agreement between the lessee and the lessor. So on January 1, 2023, the entity and the lessor agreed to amend the original lease by extending the lease term by 3 more years with the following information. Annual rental payable at the end of each year beginning December 31, 2023, same amount pa rin na 200,000. Implicit rate in the lease, tumaas tayo ng 2%, naging 11% na. Present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 for 6 periods at 11%, 4.231. So, dito makikita natin na 6 periods na lang yung natira. Kasi let's focus dun sa date ng original creation ng lease term and doon sa kung kailan ginawa yung amendments. Ibig sabihin may 2 periods na nagdaan. So, hindi na natin siya isasama doon sa data or doon sa periods na gagamitan natin ng bagong data from the amendments. So ngayon naman, gumawa tayo ng table of amortization for the year 2021 and 2022. So makikita natin dito sa table yung data, which are the payment, the implicit rate which is 9%, the principal and the lease liability. So for the periods na to. On January 1, 2021, we have the lease liability of 778,000 pesos. So paano natin siya nakuha? Included siya dito sa slide natin. So, it is the present value of the lease liability on January 1, 2021. Ibig sabihin, yung annual rental payable natin, which is 200,000 pesos, multiply natin siya sa present value of the ordinary annuity of 1, which is 3.89. So, makukuha natin yung amount nito. So, dito naman tayo sa December 31, 2021. Paano natin siya nakuha? Paano natin makukuha sa lease liability? So, it is simply yung lease liability natin from the previous year or yung January 1, 2021, kunin natin yung implicit rate niya or yung interest. So, multiply natin siya by 9%, we will get 70,020 pesos. So, from that, ide-deduct natin siya dun sa annual payment ni lessee, which is 200,000 based sa agreement nila. So, 200,000 minus yung interest na 70,020 pesos, we will get the principal payment of 129,980 pesos. So, dito na tayo. Paano na natin makukuha si lease liability? So, si principal payment, ide-deduct natin siya sa lease liability from the previous year para makuha ang lease liability ng current year. So, paano yun? 778,000 lease liability noong January 1, 2021 minus the principal payment sa December 31, 2021, makukuha natin yung amount na 648,020 pesos. Ayan. So ngayon, punta tayo sa journal entries for the year 2021. Nasa left side pa rin natin si table of amortization para magamit natin as guide. So on January 1, we will debit the right of use asset or yung ROU natin with the amount of 778,000 and credit it to the lease liability with the same amount. On December 31, on the same year, we will debit the interest expense of 70,020 pesos and credit the cash payment with the amount of 200,000 pesos. So, ang difference nila will be debited on the lease liability with the amount of 129,980 pesos. Also, i-record din natin yung depreciation, which is 155,600 debited, and ang i-credit natin is the accumulated depreciation with the same amount. So, paano natin siya nakuha? Yung right of use asset noong January 1, 2021, i-divide natin siya by the number of terms based sa agreement nila, which is 5 years. So, we will get 155,600 pesos. Ngayon naman, alamin natin kung nag-increase pa or nag-decrease si lease liability natin. First, yung present value of the new rentals on January 1, 2023 as the result of the extension. The amount is 846,200. Paano natin siya nakuha? Yung data dun sa amendments na natin yung gagamitin natin. Again, yung annual rental payable, which is 200,000 pesos, multiply natin sa bagong present value of the ordinary annuity of 1, which is 4.231. So, it will result to the said amount. So, from that, i-deduct natin yung carrying amount on January 1, 2023 before the extension. So, ito yung natitirang lease liability na pinakita natin kanina dun sa table of amortization. So, ang amount is 506,342 pesos. So, subtracting these two, we will get the increase in lease liability on January 1, 2023 with the amount of 339,850. So, originally, dapat 506,342 na lang yung remaining balance ng lease liability ni lessee. However, dahil sa extension ay nadagdagan pa siya ng amount na 339,858 pesos. So, ayan. Proceed tayo sa revised amortization schedule. Same process pa rin yung gagawin natin, kagaya ng ginawa natin kanina. Same date pa rin sila, however, nagkaroon ng pagbabago dito sa date and dun sa implicit rate natin kasi naging 11% na siya. So, for January 1, 2023, the lease liability is 846,200 pesos. So, natin siya nakuha, again, annual rental payable multiplied by the present value of the ordinary annuity of 1. So, next, on December 31, 2023, yung lease liability natin para makuha, kunin muna natin yung interest, which is the lease liability multiplied by the implicit rate of 11%, you will get 93,082 pesos. So, itong 93,082 pesos, i-deduct natin siya sa annual rental payable na 200,000 pesos. As you can see, yung column ng payment, pare-pareha sila. Kasi nasa agreement between the lessee and the lessor na yearly 200,000 pesos yung ibabayad ni lessee. So, to continue, 200,000 payment minus the interest of 93,082 pesos, we will get the principal payment of 106,918 pesos. So ito yung mababawas sa lease liability niya from the previous data. So para makuha natin yung current year, deduct lang natin si principal payment dun sa lease liability from the previous data, which is 846,200. So it will result to the amount of 739,282 pesos. So same process yung gagawin natin until maka-reach tayo kay December 2028 na kung saan fully paid na yung lease agreement natin, wala na tayong lease liability. Next, journal entries tayo for 2023. On January 1, debit the right of use asset 339,858 pesos and credit the lease liability with the same amount. So, saan galing to? Ito yung amount na kinuha natin kanina doon sa nag-increase sa lease liability natin. Kaya kailangan natin siyang i-record. Next, on December 31, we need to debit the interest expense amounting to 93,082 pesos and credit the cash payment of 200,000 pesos. The difference will be debited to the lease liability amounting to 106,918 pesos. Also, record din natin sa depreciation debit with amount of 134,443 pesos, and same amount will be credited to the accumulated depreciation. Ngayon ay kukunin na natin yung adjusted carrying amount ng right of use asset natin or ng ROU. So first, yung cost of right of use asset natin, which is 778,000 pesos. Saan natin siya nakuha? Ito yung original agreement nila na annual rental payable multiplied by the present value of the ordinary annuity of 1. So, i-deduct natin sa kanya yung amount ng accumulated depreciation on December 31, 2022. It will result in the amount of 311,200 pesos. So, subtracting this from 778,000, we will get the carrying amount on December 31, 2022 of 466,800 pesos. So, since nagkaroon tayo ng increase sa lease liability natin, it will also increase yung ROU natin. So, 466,800 pesos plus the increase in lease liability, which is 339,858 pesos, it will result to 806,658 pesos adjusted carrying amount on January 1, 2023. So again, an increase in liability is an addition to the carrying amount of the right of use asset. Next topic natin ay lease modification, decrease in scope. Ibig sabihin, mas bumaba pa yun sa hope nung lease agreement natin. Okay, apply natin siya sa scenario na to. On January 1, 2021, an entity entered into a lease of office space with the following information. Floor space, 100 square meters. Annual rental payable at the end of each year, 40,000 pesos. Lease term natin is 10 years. Implicit rate, 8%. Present value of the ordinary annuity of 1, for 8% for 10 periods, it is 6.71. And yung present value of the lease payments, on January 1, 2021, it is 268,400 pesos. So ito yung amortization table natin for 2021 and 2022. Again, ang lease liability natin on January 1, 2021 is 268,400 pesos. So same process yung gagawin natin kagaya ng ginawa natin kanina. So apply nyo lang ulit yun. For the journal entries, on January 1, same pa rin tayo. Same pa rin yung mangyayari. Debit the right of use asset 268,400 pesos and credit the lease liability of 268,400 pesos. So on December 31, debit the interest expense 21,472 pesos and credit the cash payment of 40,000 pesos. The difference of the two will be debited to the lease liability account. Also, on December 31, we will record the depreciation of 26,840 pesos, and the same amount will be credited to the accumulated depreciation. Paano natin siya nakuha? Yung lease liability natin, divide natin siya sa lease term, which is 10 years. So next na tayo. Ito na yung cause kung bakit nagkaroon ng lease modification, yung amendments na ginawa. So, on January 1, 2023, the lessee and the lessor agreed to amend the original terms of the lease with the following information. Floor space 60 square meters, annual rental payable 30,000 pesos, implicit rate 10%, and the present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 for 10 periods, which is 5.335. Ayan, so makikita natin sa left side ng screen natin yung data from the original agreement ng lessee and ng lessor. And sa right side, ito yung amendments na ginawa nila. So, para mas makita natin yung comparison between the two, pinagtabi ko na lang. So, sa floor space, from 100 square meters, naging 60 square meters na lang siya. Ibig sabihin, 40 square meters or 40% ang ibinaba ng scope ng lease agreement. So, sa annual rental payable, from 40,000 pesos, naging 30,000 na lang siya. Sa lease term, walang nabanggit, which means i-continue lang natin yung term dun sa original agreement nila. Implicit rate, from 8%, naging 10% na lang. And yung present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 ay magiging 5.335. On dealing with a decrease in scope of the lease, lease modification pa rin tayo, we must always remember the IFRS 16 and paragraph 46 na kung saan sinasabi na a gain or loss should be recognized as a result of the partial terminations of the lease. So, ibig sabihin, kapag nagkaroon daw ng changes or bumaba yung scope ng lease natin from the original agreements between the lessee and the lessor, doon sa amendments na ginawa nila, ibig sabihin magre-record tayo ng whether termination gain or termination loss. So ano yung rules between the two? Sinasabi na termination gain ay i-record natin kapag yung decrease in the carrying amount of lease liability ay mas mataas sa decrease ng carrying amount ng ROU natin. Kung kabaliktaran naman ang nangyari, ibig sabihin ay yung decrease in the carrying amount of the lease liability is less than the decrease of the amount of ROU natin, we will record it as termination loss. So bakit? Kasi mas malaki yung nawala sa atin, yung right of use asset, kumpara dun sa nawalang obligations na kailangan bayaran ni lessee kay lessor. So sa right of use asset naman tayo, kagaya ng ginawa natin kanina, kunin muna natin yung cost of right of use asset, which is 268,400 pesos. So, i-deduct natin sa kanya yung accumulated depreciation natin for those 2 years, which is 53,680 pesos. It will result to the carrying amount of the ROU on December 31, 2022 amounting to 214,720 pesos. So, in-include ko dito yung amortization schedule para ma-recall natin. Next, the termination gain or loss. First, the decrease in the current amount of the lease liability, which is 229,862 pesos multiplied by the decrease sa scope natin, which is 40%. It will result to 91,945. I-deduct natin sa kanya yung decrease sa carrying amount ng ROU natin, which is 85,888 pesos. Paano natin siya nakuha? Yung carrying amount ng ROU natin, multiply natin sa kanya yung decrease ulit sa scope, which is 40%. We will get 6,057 pesos. And since mas mataas yung ibinaba ng carrying amount ng lease liability kumpara sa ibinaba ng carrying amount ng ROU natin, it is a termination fee. Continuation tayo. For the lease liability on January 1, 2023, 229,862 pesos. Reduction of all lease liability 91,945. So deducting those two, we will get the remaining old lease liability of 137,917 pesos. So, para makuha natin whether it nag-increase ba or nag-decrease si lease liability, kagaya pa rin ang ginawa natin on the previous topic. So, present value of the new rentals on January 1, 2023 as a result of the decrease in scope, 160,050 pesos. I-deduct natin sa kanya yung carrying amount of the old lease liability on January 1, 2023, which is 137,917 pesos. So we will get the increase in the lease liability of 22,133 pesos on January 1, 2023. So dito tayo sa adjusted balances on December 31, 2022 ng ROU. Sa table natin, makikita yung columns ng cost, accumulated depreciation, and accruing amount. First is yung amount sa right of use asset natin. At cost, it is 268,400 pesos. Accumulated depreciation ay 53,680 pesos. Deducting the two, we will get the current amount of 214,720 pesos. Since nagkaroon ng 40% reduction dun sa scope ng lease natin, we will reduce it dun sa ROU natin. On the column of the cost, the ROU minus the reduction of 40%, we will get 161,040 pesos as balance. The accumulated depreciation will be 32,208 pesos, and the carrying amount of 128,832 pesos. So, since nagkaroon ng increase sa liability natin na nakuha natin earlier, kailangan natin siyang i-add doon sa balance na nakuha natin ng ROU. Sa cost, we will have the 183,173 pesos. For the accumulated depreciation, it is the same amount. Carrying amount ng ROU natin, we will get the adjusted balance of 150,965 pesos. So, sa revised amortization schedule naman tayo. Same process pa rin yung gagawin natin kagaya ng mga ginawa natin previously. So, journal entries tayo for 2023. On January 1, we will debit the lease liability account with 91,945 pesos, accumulated depreciation 21,472 pesos, and credit the right of use asset 107,360 pesos. Termination gain will be credited with the amount of 6,057 pesos. So, saan nanggaling? Ito yung i-decrease ng amount nila dahil sa decrease din ng scope agreement. So also, on January 1, we will debit the right of use asset with 22,133 pesos, and the same amount will be credited to the lease liability since nag-increase yung lease liability natin dahil sa pagbabago sa scope. On December 31 of the same year, interest expense will be debited with amount of 16,005 pesos, lease liability debit 13,995 pesos, and credit the cash with a total of the two. Also, depreciation will be debited with the amount of 18,871 and credited to the accumulated depreciation with the same amount. So, next topic tayo sa lease modification, change in rental. This is the last topic for the chapter 11. So, scenario, on January 1, 2021, an entity leased equipment with the following information. Annual rental payable at the end of each year, 80,000 pesos. Lease term natin ay 6 years. Implicit rate, 7%. Present value of the ordinary annuity of 1 for 7% for 6 period, 4.77. And yung present value of the lease payment natin ay 381,600 pesos. It is the annual rental payable multiplied by the present value of the ordinary annuity of 1. So, sa table of amortization tayo for 2021 to 2023. Same process ulit yung gagawin natin. So, eto pa rin. Ang nag-iba lang ng data natin ay yung date, again, and yung implicit rate which is 7%. So journal entries tayo for 2021. On January 1, debit the right of use asset and credit the lease liability, both with 381,600 pesos. So as you can see, makikita natin siya dito sa table of amortization natin sa left side ng screen. On December 31, debit the interest expense, 26,712 pesos, and credit the cash with amount of 80,000 pesos. The difference will be debited to the lease liability account, amounting to 53,288 pesos. Also, record natin yung depreciation. Depreciation will be debited with the amount of 63,600 pesos and credited to the account or accumulated depreciation rather with the same amount. So again, ito naman yung amendments. On January 1, 2024, the entity and the lessor agreed to amend the original terms of the lease by reducing the lease agreements to 70,000 pesos and increasing the implicit rate to 9%. The present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 at 9% for 3 periods is 2.53. Para kunin ulit yung increase or decrease kay lease liability, first ay modified lease liability on January 1, 2024, which is 70,000 multiplied by 2.53. Ito ay galing na din sa amendments na ginawa ng lessee and lessor. It will be 177,100 pesos. Deduct natin sa kanya yung current amount of all lease liability on January 1, 2023. It is 210,285 pesos. So, ibig sabihin, nagkaroon ng decrease sa lease liability natin, which is 33,185 pesos. Again, kapag nagkaroon ng decrease sa lease liability natin, it means there is a reduction also sa carrying amount of the right of use asset. Next, kunin na natin yung adjusted carrying amount ng ROU natin. Again, cost of right of use asset, 381,600. Deduct ulit natin yung accumulated depreciation on December 31, 2022, which is 190,800 pesos. It will be 190,800 pesos also as the carrying amount of the ROU on December 31, 2022. I-deduct natin sa kanya yung decrease in lease liability, 190,800 pesos minus 33,185 pesos, it will result to the ROU adjusted carrying amount on January 1, 2024, amounting to 157,615 pesos. Ito ulit ang revised amortization schedule natin. So, same process yung gagawin natin until ma-reach natin yung December 31, 2026, which is yung end ng lease agreement between the lessee and the lessor. So, ito na yung last. For the journal entries of 2024, January 1, debit the lease liability and credit the right of use asset with the amount of 33,185 pesos. So, bakit parang nagkabaliktad? Ito ay dahil sa nagkaroon nga ng kabawasan sa obligations natin. So, kailangan natin i-debit si lease liability. On December 31, same pa rin yung magiging entries natin. Interest expense, debited, 15,839 pesos. Credited si cash with yung annual payment niya na 70,000 pesos. And debit the lease liability of 50,000 or 54,061 pesos. Lastly, yung depreciation natin will be debited amounting to 52,538 pesos and credit the accumulated depreciation with the same amount.